Welcome to Perfectly Imperfect Me 365, the podcast where we get real about mental health, messy growth, and being human one day at a time. I'm your host, Rachel, and together we're navigating life's chaos with honesty, compassion, and a little humor. Let's get into it. All right. Hello. So today we are talking about loneliness. And it's not the obvious kind that I want to talk about. And it's not that I don't have anyone loneliness. It's the quiet, confusing kind. The kind where you're surrounded by people, you're surrounded by comments, DMs, notifications, and you still feel empty, completely disconnected, and weirdly ashamed for feeling that way. And yes, I'm absolutely including myself in this conversation, probably actually talking to myself, because at this moment, I kind of just need a little pick me up and a reminder. So I want to start with something honest. Some of the loneliest moments of my life did not happen when I was isolated or single or going through my divorce. They happened when I was posting consistently, growing a platform, watching the numbers, the followers climb and fall. I was checking my views. I was checking the likes. And I was seeing how others were actually performing or doing better. And I was just telling myself, I should just be grateful for what I have. And still feeling this sinking feeling of like, why do I feel so disconnected? Why do I feel so behind? Why is this not bringing me joy? And loneliness doesn't always look like silence. Sometimes it looks like noise, a lot of it. And I've definitely experienced that as I've become more of a content creator and working on that. And we don't talk enough about the loneliness that comes from comparisons. That is the kind that creeps in quietly while you're scrolling and while you're posting and while you're actually building something that is supposed to be meaningful for yourself. And it sounds a little like, hey, they're growing faster than me. They have more followers than me. They can vlog better than me. Why does it look so easy for them? If I were doing this right, I have like more followers. Wouldn't I be further along? Maybe I'm just not good at this. And suddenly you're not lonely because you lack connection. You're lonely because you're constantly measuring yourself against numbers. And you're measuring your worth against numbers, against the followers, against views, against likes, against engagement, how many brand deals you might have or may never get. And the reality is that metrics were never meant to be mirrors for us, but we actually treat them like they are. I know I do. And so let me say this very clearly that your nervous system, my nervous system, does not understand social media. Your brain evolved to track safety, belonging, and connection in like some small groups, not thousands of people, not algorithms that are constantly changing, not fluctuating engagement. So when your post doesn't perform, so to speak, your brain doesn't say, oh, that's interesting data. It says something is wrong with me. And this is where the self-criticism starts. And trust me, I get it because it still happens to me daily as I'm trying to become a bigger presence on the social media platforms. I'll say this very loudly because I know that I'm not alone. I've had moments where I hit milestones. I've had a video go viral. I've gained thousands of followers. I've gotten great feedback. And instead of feeling proud, my brain immediately goes, okay, but what's next? It really wasn't that great. Why isn't it more? Right? I should be further. You could be doing better. Other people are doing more. Other people are better at doing this. Other people are better speakers. Other people are better at communicating. And then there's that internal voice that comes through, and I hear it so loudly, and it says, you're not doing enough, Rachel. You're not good enough. You're falling behind. You really shouldn't be a social content creator or do these podcasts or be a presence, which is wild because on paper and even watching the clock, I'm doing a lot. But comparison has a way of shrinking our reality. And here's the part that most people miss. Comparison doesn't just hurt self-esteem. It actually disconnects us from people. Because when you're busy comparing, you stop feeling part of a community. You start seeing others as these benchmarks, not humans. You feel like you're competing instead of connecting. And when you feel like you're behind, guess what you do? You isolate, not physically, but emotionally. You pull inward. You stop celebrating yourself. You stop letting things feel enough. You stop sharing from a grounded place and you start posting from pressure. And I have been there, and it is a lonely place to live. And there's this belief that just sneaks in very quietly that says, once I have more followers, I'm going to feel better. Once I hit this number, I'm going to relax. Once I get a brand deal, I'll finally feel confident. And here's what actually happens. That goalpost moves, always. And more doesn't resolve insecurity. It only amplifies it. Because now there's more that I need to maintain. There's more to compare, more pressure, whether it's yourself or what you're doing around you, more fear of losing what you've built. And loneliness doesn't disappear with visibility. Sometimes it increases it. And so from a DBT perspective, this hits on two big things that I want to talk about. One is the invalidating environments. When our sense of worth depends on external metrics, you're constantly being judged by systems that don't actually reflect your value. Algorithms are not compassionate, guys. They're not consistent. They're definitely not personal, but our brains make it personal anyway. And the other one is emotion mind takes over. And in emotion mind, numbers lead to us believing it's meaning. Low engagement feels like rejection. High engagement feels like relief. It feels like this empowerment, and relief is not the same as self-worth. So let's talk about the grief underneath all of this. The grief of working hard and still doubting yourself, showing up and feeling unseen, being visible and still feeling invisible. And that grief can turn into resentment, burnout, numbness, self-criticism. And the more critical you are of yourself, the lonelier you feel. Because now you're not even safe inside your own head. And loneliness isn't like a personal failure. And this part matters. Feeling lonely in a connected world does not mean something is wrong with you. It just means that you're human. And I tell myself this pretty much a couple times a day. And we were never meant to derive our sense of self-worth from performance. I am not an actor. I am not a famous person that can sing and dance and act. I am not a metric or constant output. Connection is actually felt. It's not counted. And I'm not going to tell you to just stop caring, because trust me, I've tried that and it's not realistic. But there are things that genuinely do help. So the first one is that you want to separate impact from identity. You cannot underperform without being underwhelming. Those are not the same. And then you want to name that comparison loop. So when you catch yourself spiraling and comparing, literally say to yourself, oh, I'm comparing again. Naming it actually creates space. Ground back into your values. And I will honestly tell you that this one has probably been the most effective for me, because what I do is I ask myself, why did I start this in the first place? Why did I start this podcast? Why did I start on TikTok? Why did I start a social media platform? And it brings me back to my why. And then I ask myself, like, who am I actually trying to reach? And what feels meaningful to me? You also want to create offline anchors, real conversations, real relationships, real feedback, things that remind your nervous system that you belong without these metrics. And then the other one is that you have to practice self-validation, not like hyping yourself up, not ego, just truth, right? Like, hey, I showed up today. I tried. This actually matters to me. And that is enough for today. I actually say that to myself quite often. This is enough, Rachel. Get off your phone. Stop that. And if you're listening and you're thinking, I feel seen, I feel called out, or I feel exhausted, you're not weak, you're not behind, and you're not failing. You are navigating a system that is constantly asking you to prove your worth. Loneliness doesn't mean you're doing life wrong. It just means that you're craving real connection, including with yourself. So you don't need to earn your right to exist in this world. You don't need to be louder, you don't need to be better, or even more impressive to matter. You don't need to turn your life into a performance. You're actually allowed to slow down. You are allowed to feel proud without chasing the next thing. You're allowed to create space, share, and live without it defining your worth. And if today all you did was show up and listen, that counts. So if this resonates with you and if this hit home for you, or if you know somebody who's struggling with feeling connected in a world that is living on social media, share this with them. Follow me for more. Like it, rate it. I'm on Instagram, I'm on YouTube. Those links will be in my show notes. And if nothing else, just remember that you showed up and it's okay to just be yourself. I'm Rachel. Have a great day.